Alright, after looking around for some time there, trying to figure out and this kind of plot what kind of Titan I want to make, I think I found a proper name for this Titan. It's going to be called Khepri, as in like the Beetle god, apparently, associated with Egyptian lore essentially, because if I'm understanding what I read there, Khepri was, at least in some sense, was the god envisioned with moving the sun along the sky, bringing it to the underworld at night, and then bringing it up into the sky during the day, essentially. So Khepri is going to be the Beetle, the god, essentially, that is kind of associated with that kind of power. And of course there's a lot of other meanings there, like Khepri, or being a representation of rebirth, being reborn as well. A lot of that like Egyptian lore essentially, so I'm gonna go with that there essentially. The only problem is, how the hell do you get a playstyle that's associated with a god that's all about rebirth when pretty much all of this game is about is destruction? You could argue the destruction of the Coruscant Collective is going to be a rebirth of the race in general, because the Outlaws are going to be freed, the Coruscant Collective are going to be put to a greater purpose, a greater cause, so it's kind of hard to justify, but nonetheless, I think considering like the main image of Khepri is like a dung beetle that actually like pushes like the dung rolling across the ground there essentially, I think we're going to keep true to that in some sense by making this a frontal firing ship, which is going to be a little bit different than what I'm used to. Because if it's going to be constantly pushing the sun there, it needs to have the strength and power to back it up essentially, is all I really need to say on that. So we're going to go so far as to make this overload, which is going to be really awkward because it's going to have a very narrow arc. It's actually really hard to actually notice it there, but it's got 45-degree arc with the overload. We're going to try playing with that, see how that works. And in the end, we'll see if that justifies what I have in mind with the ship. Only question is, do I want to put more null field cannons on, or is 4 going to be good? It's hard to say. I think I should probably try and throw on 2 more. And then cut them back if it's too much or not enough. We'll have to see. We will have to see, because I honestly don't really know. And we have dark matter reactors to easily power all this, essentially, where I don't need as many for like the phasers. This will require, due to the high power demands, was 1,200, so it's going to need a lot of power capacitors to kind of handle that. Because I don't think there's any way to really boost power generation any other ways there, aside from what was it, the engineering bay? Yeah, the engineering bay holds a fair amount. Not a whole lot, unfortunately. It's like, it boosts the power of the engines, or reduces the demands on the engines, and boosts the weapons rather, and it boosts the power of the engines and get a small portion of power capacitor in the process, which pales in comparison to these regular ones here. So only thing I don't know is, do I want to go up to 2,000? Well, actually, once I have enough there to power it in general, I can just easily throw in enough dark matter cores to kind of be certain that I can actually fire it reliably. If anything, I just want enough power cores that possibly fire all of them together, arguably, I think is what I would like to try and do. So that's going to be start there. Let me find my engines there. Let's see. I guess I don't have much choice. I keep thinking for some reason I have extra engines that I can utilize, which apparently is not the case, because we've been using fusion engines this entire time here, essentially. And I just noticed another weird little difference here on the engine slots. For some reason I have an extra slot here for throwing on engines, but it's kind of like I do up here with the lasers, which is kind of weird. Is that a bit of a bug, or is that intended, I wonder? I honestly don't know. But this ship is going to rely heavily on its mobility if it's going to keep making sure it hits something in front of it there, essentially, which is going to be pretty important. And I think I'm gonna go overkill on the power capacitors for now, just to make sure that it can handle what I have in mind for it. Above all else, at least. So, how much power capacitor do I want? Do I want to, let's see, 2,500 if I want to fire with like 2 of them. So I want at least to have enough to fire 2 of them constantly, and then have enough power to keep it firing rapidly. Oops, I accidentally lost one of my null field cannons. Let me fix that there quickly. There, that should be enough power there, or stored up energy, and then just throw in enough dark matter reactors to make sure it constantly keeps going. Which is going to be interesting considering, yeah, these have a 10-second fire rate, so don't want to go too overkill with it if I can help it, ideally, but this will be pretty good. What else? I could throw canopy shields on there too, can I? Because that fits in just perfectly. Yes, it does. 2 canopy shields for good measure on the side. Gonna throw some class 3 shields in the middle. Don't know how many class 3 shields I could throw in there. I almost want to just fit them in here because I could put power capacitors anywhere else, where this gives me the all-around defense I like for the ship. So that way it covers all my bases there without having to worry about the risk of like shield generators on the side not being utilized to their full potential. So that's the thought there. Afterwards I'll have to compare how many shield generators the Locust has, so I know to have a good idea what its durability is like. Because I don't think I want to put armor on it, do I? Especially since I don't have... This is going to be incredibly heavy armor at that. It would soak a lot of damage though, that's for sure certain. Although since I put no upgrades onto it, my shields are slowly going to get more and more powerful. I think I want to stick with that. Even though shield capacitors aren't going to do much good. So now that the null field cans are in there, what else can I throw on? Actually, let me not forget about the power capacitors here. Try and throw those on there. That should cover 2 of those easily. And if that's too much, I can cut them back. So what else can I throw on there though? I'll throw 6 power generators. That's definitely overkill, I feel like. But another idea I'm interested in experimenting with is, since these phasers are so potent, at least with like single kinds, I'm thinking of like a different style of utilizing the phasers essentially. Oops, maybe I want to... What I'm gonna do here, I think I'll try overload, because this will be a little more interesting. But here's what I have in mind. Since Locust is all about the phaser fire, what I'm going to do here is make these phasers more of a point defense weapon, as opposed to actually being a main form of damage. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to put, instead of a bunch of phasers, I'm going to put a lot of these particle capacitors on it to really cut back on the recharge time. So if I'm understanding correctly, 2 of these automatically will cut these down by half, since there's only 2 phases, so that's 4 seconds. So I'm gonna try 2 more, and I think that might bring it down to 2.5, 3. I'm not entirely certain there what it'll be brought down to. And then I'm gonna do the same for these sides here. So instead of a lot of phasers, I'm gonna have really focused power towards a small handful of them, so that way they can fire really fast and they can be used reliably as a point defense weapon as opposed to like just murdering ships. Especially with the range it has there, that will work out well. And negates the need for like a lot of laser batteries, aside from maybe small point defense lasers, since they're the only thing that can reliably shoot at fires and missiles. That's my thought there, and that's what I'm going to experiment with the ship. I don't know if I want to overload the sides though. I don't know if that's a good idea. Again, I'll have to experiment and see. because since they're more point defense minded, they're not going to have the best arc. There's going to be pretty much a good blind spot there. So actually I'll turn off the overload. Just so at least the side here, yeah, there's still going to be a tiny blind spot, but it's only going to be very tiny. And the front weapon, since its focus is on its frontal fire, can actually contribute to doing its main frontal barrage if necessary. So there, that's what I like, and it has potential. I don't know, do I need a high energy focus or not? Probably doesn't hurt to have one. Gonna try to throw them on there and see how the space looks. Because I got 4. I'll just throw 3 on there because that gives me hex here to maybe throw something else, maybe torpedo or something, we'll see. Or actually, well, I could throw a 4th one there. It's just, that's a little annoying that I can't throw an extra one in like that though. A little bit of an annoyance, not much of one. Actually, I could throw a 4th one there and put a fuel capacitor up there, or power capacitor, to kind of balance out what the slots are currently. So far this has potential. It's gonna require good experimentation though, to really understand how this will work. If I really want to, I can just extend the arc to kind of get rid of the blind spot altogether, because I'm still gonna have one in the back actually, now that I think of it. So I'll do that. Because this is going to be so aggressive, essentially. It's going to expose its rear quite a lot, so and it won't have much of a way to actually defend against it. So there we go. That should solve that to some extent. Next, what else do I want to throw in there? And heck, even as I get more like mass reduction there, I can start cutting back some of these engines a little bit to replace them with weaponry as well. Because I already got like first level mass reduction, let's see, 25% and additional 3%, so, and I think that is additive, so essentially it's a 28% total reduction. And as I get more of that, that's going to start becoming more and more significant, I think, which is going to be a ridiculous, that's going to start getting ridiculous how much it's going to increase the mobility of these ships as it starts stacking up. But anyways, since this is frontal fire base like I mentioned before, I want to look at the potential of torpedoes as well. Let's see, photon torpedoes energy base, that's antimatter torpedo, and what was the other, oh, heavy torpedo, I don't care about them. They're a little bit slow as well. Oh, it doesn't take as many hexes as I thought it would. Yeah, and I can fit them here pretty well. Again, it's a pretty small arc, so I do need to learn the ship a little bit if I'm going to utilize this properly. And I don't know if I want to throw another null field cannon or not, because it's already pretty high on the power demands. Because I want to make sure I can fire all those null field cannons on the without hit before it passes the ship. It's going right at essentially. And I worry that if I throw another one in there, it's probably not going to be able to do that. I'll experiment again. This is all experimentation. And I can even throw a side one here like that. Perfect. Oh, these don't have overload, so I need to fix that too. So let's see, that has overload, that has overload. Okay, so that was the only one for some reason didn't see overload checked. So that is a lot of frontal fire. And now to fill out the rest with actual point defense weaponry of sorts. So this is where the actual laser batteries come in. I don't think I want much of the big, larger ones, but point defense I always feel is a must in some sense, especially with these Titans, because they can abuse their power quite a while. Oops, oh crap. There goes one of my null field cannons. Foiled by a single laser cannon. Let me just sort of fill these out and then I'll fix that quickly. But I like the potential. I really do like the potential these phasers could have for me. It's not to mention having like, if I can do it right, it's gonna have like be constantly firing all times. So there's gonna be laser fire everywhere, so long as there's something to shoot at. And since there's like less of them, and they're all spread out there, they should be able to be more effective at hitting separate targets as opposed to the overkill for hitting like frigates and such, because that is one of the downsides I'm seeing with the Locust and least, and even Garelon, of course. Because it fires all its phasers at a single fighter, it kills it, but then the other phasers don't do anything for like 5 seconds or so, or even if not longer, essentially. Which is the one thing I really do dislike, because you would think these phasers would be the perfect type of point defense weapon against anything it can hit. It's just the fact that they keep hitting the same target that's the issue, though. And let's see, do I want rapid fire? No, I don't want rapid fire. Because I don't expect it to be able to reliably fire constantly at the targets. Unless it's like a really big fleet, possibly. Which is where I'm kind of wondering if I want to throw at least a couple plates of armor on the front. Because if it's going to go right at them, it's essentially going to start having fire that breaches the shield to an extent, which I do worry about a little bit. Hard to say. Other than that, I need ammo to accommodate the torpedoes, or more or less I need ordnance fabricators. That would be more ideal. Heck, I don't even think I need regular fabricators. I could just, or ordnance storage, I could just throw fabricators and that'll solve my problem right there. I would think. It doesn't say, but I'm pretty certain with just only a handful of torpedoes, heck, even one of them probably indefinitely rearm it, so I'll leave it with one. So it leaves a couple laser batteries for me to look around and try. Let me just fill out with laser cannons and then adjust afterwards. And see how that works. And that's the side. Anything I want to throw on the front? Probably large dual turrets there on the front. Because nothing wrong with heavy laser batteries. Might throw a few light armor plating. Not significant, just light armor plating on there. It needs to be as light as I want as possible to kind of help. Plastic steel's probably it. Solar armor. Don't need solar armor. Titanium is heavy as hell. Yeah, let's see. They're all relatively light on the smaller hexes at least, so... And how heavy is some of this stuff? It's a bit heavy. The laser can is 17, so... I would lose some laser batteries here. Real question is, how heavy is this? 10.8, so... This single titanium armor is like... as heavy as a laser can, so I do need to be careful of that. I don't know if I like it. Better safe than sorry though, because this is going to be one of the more aggressive type of ships I have. And I want to make sure I cover it. I don't even think the armor is going to do that much, because it needs to be like the first layer for it to reliably work. So, maybe not on the side. But the front there should be okay. Can't really put that phaser anywhere else though. Here's hoping. The first layer of defense should go through that. And then work its way back maybe? I don't know how the behavior works exactly. Anyways, let's finish this up because I want to give this a try. Because there's going to be a lot of experimentation work to do. Because I want to test the phasers, I want to test the energy potential of the null field cannons they are. If I should replace these with an extra one, these torpedoes. Or if it balances out pretty well. And then we'll put Khepri to work. Khepri, rather. I have to be more respectful of these Beetle gods, considering I am been an insectoid race for this entire campaign. Now, last thing is what to fit in the middle there. Obviously it has to be some kind of targeting. So what is this? I'm not sure how best to do this. It seems like the quality crew core seems better, if not a tiny bit heavier. Whereas targeting computer is lighter, has a bit more power demands, but this is quality crew cars is arguably better. But my assumption is that the effects does not stack very well if they're the same, because you would think quality crew cores would be a one-time kind of boost almost. Because you can't have even more quality crew cores, you would think. It's hard to really say. Especially with a race that doesn't care about their approval rating. You gotta think about that too. Although I doubt that counts in this situation. Now, just fill out these last slots. Might as well throw on the power capacitors. And then we'll give this a shot, shall we?